Welcome to BOJTV's Trending News. 4 top stories in local, regional and international news along with sports and local weather forecast. I'm Carla. Coming up in our Trending News. More information to be provided on Ruel Reid's US $3,800 credit card. Minister of Health and Wellness Dr. Christopher Tufton say the ministry has activated its Ebola virus disease response plan. St. James robot taxi operator arrested and charged with a sexual assault, and Montego Bay businessman charged with possession of a ganja. Now the details. Minister with responsibility for education, Carl Semuda, has assured the House of Representatives that he will seek more details on a controversial credit card which was issued to former Minister Ruel Reid by the ministry. Mr. Semuda, the Leader of the House, in response to a question from the Leader of the Opposition, Dr. Peter Phillips, said that he personally was not aware of any such practice on the part of a current government to provide ministers with credit cards. Speaker of the House, Pernell Charles Sr., also indicated that he had never been made aware of cabinet ministers being offered credit cards to pay their bills. However, in response to Dr. Phillips's question as to whether he was aware that the ministry's guidelines prohibits ministers from being issued credit cards and whether there was a breakdown in communication which led to Reid being issued one, Mr. Semuda insisted that the card could not have been given to the minister without the advice of someone in authority within the ministry. So I cannot venture into why or the method by which it was acquired, Mr. Semuda told the opposition leader. The issue was raised in a number of questions asked of the Prime Minister Andrew Holness by opposition spokesman on education Ronald Thwaites, which were answered yesterday by Mr. Semuda. The House leader explained that a card was issued to Reid with a limit of US $3,800. He said that the card was to be used for payment for petrol, some hotel charges, book charges, and air travel related matters, but he said that he did not have any more details as to who issued the card or who is responsible for payment of the debts, as it was just recently brought to his attention. The Ministry of Health and Wellness has activated its International Ebola Virus Resource Response Plan in response to the declaration of the Ebola virus outbreak in the Republic of Congo. The declaration was made by the World Health Organization, WHO, on July 17. Dr. Christopher Tufton, Minister of Health and Wellness, explained that the declaration signaled that there is an extraordinary event which has been determined to constitute a public health risk to the other states through the international spread of the disease and to potentially require a coordinated international response. According to Dr. Tufton, the minister will also be ensuring capacity for readiness, which includes addressing stock levels of critical equipment and supplies. A 30-year-old robot taxi operator from the parish of St. James was arrested and charged for allegedly sexually assaulting a 30-year-old female customer service representative. The accused has been identified as Nairobi Shirley, otherwise called Buzz or Omar, of Spring Gardens in St. James. Reports are that on June 24, the robot taxi operator who transported female workers from the free zone in Montego Bay transported the victim and 3 of her friends from Clock at Barnett Street. They stopped at a club and at approximately 11:30 p.m. he dropped off the other 3 females but drove to his home in Spring Gardens with the victim on board. It is alleged that he dragged her from the car inside his house and sexually assaulted her. A report was made to the police, and after the victim was taken to see a medical doctor, the robot taxi operator was arrested and charged on Monday. The St. James police have laid criminal charges against a Montego Bay businessman after his shop was searched and a quantity of ganja was found at the Montego Bay Shoes Market. Facing charges of possession of ganja and dealing in ganja is 52 years old Glenford Robinson of Ryan Park, also in St. James. Reports by the police are that on the weekend, the police carried out an operation at the Montego Bay Shoes Market when they searched a shop which is operated by the accused. A search of the shop led to the discovery of a quantity of ganja, resulting in Robinson being taken into custody and charged on the weekend. He is booked to appear in the St. James Parish Court on Wednesday, August 7th. 29 years old Mervyn Thomas, otherwise called Ratty, a barber of Portland, died from injuries he received in a motor vehicle accident along the Orange Bay Main Road on Monday. The driver of another vehicle, which was also involved in the accident, is still at hospital in serious but stable condition. Reports from the Orange Bay Police are that about 7:40 p.m. Thomas was driving a Pulse motor car along the Orange Bay Main Road. On reaching a section of the roadway, he lost control of the vehicle and collided into a Toyota Belta motor car, which was traveling in the opposite direction. Thomas and the driver of the other vehicle sustained injuries and were taken to hospital, where he died. The Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation say it is providing training for shelter managers in first aid and shelter management practices. Terry Forrester, Kingston and St. Andrew Parish Disaster Coordinator, say they are putting together all shelter managers in the organisation to brief them on what is expected of the hurricane season. She said they are also looking to do first aid testing with over 30 shelter managers, and they will be trained in phases, which starts this month. Approximately 110 shelter managers will be gathering at the Alpha Institute in Kingston for the KSAMC Shelter Management Conference, set to be held on July 31st. The managers will engage in learning and sharing information as to their relevant roles. Those were your top stories making local trending news. Now join us for news from across the region, as well as our international stories, sports and local weather forecast. Across the region. Venezuela's opposition on Tuesday sought to harness anger over a massive blackout that deepened hardship nationwide, but the turnout at a Caracas demonstration was relatively modest, as many Venezuelans despair of an imminent solution to their plight. Lights came back on in parts of the capital and other areas of Venezuela overnight, following a nearly 9-hour outage that the government blamed on an electromagnet attack against the power grid, without providing any evidence. Government opponents say years of mismanagement and corruption were to blame. Electricity supply remained unstable in many regions. The blackout knocked out communications in Caracas Metro on Monday, forcing commuters to walk home or hustle for a spot on packed buses. The metro remained out of operation Tuesday. The scenes in the capital were familiar, even though Caracas has been mostly spared the debilitating power cuts that persisted in other parts of the country after nationwide outages in March. In international news, an immigration enforcement operation that President Donald Trump said was part of an effort to deport millions of people from the United States resulted in 35 arrests, officials said yesterday. Trump billed the operation targeting families as a major show of force, as the number of Central American families crossing the southern border has skyrocketed. There are about 1 million people in the U.S. with final deportation orders. The operation targeted 2,100. Of those arrested, 18 were members of families and 17 were collateral apprehensions of people in the country illegally who were encountered by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers. None of those arrests resulted in the separation of families, officials said. Over in our sporting report, Jamaican bodybuilder Sean Roden has turned himself into police in Utah on rape and sexual assault charges, reports in the United States claim. He was released on a bond of US $250,000. Roden, the 2018 Mr. Olympia, reportedly pleaded not guilty to the charges of rape, abject rape and sexual assault, and has vowed that he will be cleared of those charges. He is accused of raping a female bodybuilder at a hotel in Sandy, Utah on October 12, 2018. Mere weeks after winning the Mr. Olympia title in September. According to court documents, reports said the victim accused Roden of forcing himself on her inside his hotel room. He ignored her repeated pleas to stop, but eventually allowed her to leave the room. On your local weather forecast for this morning, insignificant feature: a tropical wave east of Jamaica. Additionally, there is a low-level jet stream across the central Caribbean. The tropical wave is expected to move across the island this afternoon. Expect windy conditions to persist, especially along the south coast and during the afternoons, as the low-level jet stream remains across the central Caribbean. The forecast for this morning will see partly cloudy skies across sections of eastern parishes, mainly sunny elsewhere. Windy along southern coastal areas. During the this afternoon. Widely scattered showers and isolated thunderstorms, mainly across central and western parishes. Partly cloudy elsewhere. Tonight becoming fair. Maximum temperature expected for Kingston as well as Montego Bay today is 34 degrees Celsius. That was BOJTV's Trending News, your top local, regional and international stories, as well as a sports report and weather forecast. Until next time, I'm Carla. Thanks for watching.
BOJTV.